Chuck Norris stood face to face with Bruce Lee. The cameras weren't rolling yet, but the tension was real. Bruce looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I want you to actually try to hit me." Chuck hesitated. "Bruce, I don't think that's... Do it, or this fight scene won't be believable." What happened in the next 60 seconds shocked the entire crew. And what it led to changed martial arts cinema forever. This wasn't just another movie fight. This was a challenge between two of the greatest martial artists who ever lived. One representing the power and precision of Western martial arts, the other embodying the speed and philosophy of the East. Both at the peak of their abilities, both with everything to prove, and both about to create a moment that would be studied, analyzed, and celebrated for over 50 years. But before we get there, let me ask you somethings. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country in the comments. And if you've ever been challenged by someone you deeply respect, type "repeat" below. Because this isn't just a fight story. It's a story about two legends, one epic moment, and a friendship that defined an era. It's about what happens when respect meets skill, when honor meets intensity, when two warriors push each other beyond what anyone thought was possible. Let's go back to how it all started. It was early 1972. Chuck Norris was teaching karate in his Los Angeles dojo. He had won multiple world championships. He was respected, successful, comfortable. His name was known throughout the martial arts world. Students came from all over to train with him. He had built a reputation on discipline, power, and unwavering technique. Chuck was at a point in his life where he felt settled. He had achieved what most martial artists only dream of. The trophies lined his office walls. The respect of his peers was unquestioned. He was content teaching, passing on his knowledge, living a steady life. Then the phone rang. "Chuck, it's Bruce." Bruce Lee, the rising star who had just exploded onto the international scene with the Big Boss and Fist of Fury. The man who was redefining what martial arts could look like on screen. The fighter whose speed seemed impossible, whose charisma was magnetic, whose philosophy was changing how people thought about combat itself. "I'm making a new film. It's called The Way of the Dragon. I'm writing, directing, and starring in it." Chuck felt a surge of pride for his friend. Bruce had been grinding for years, fighting for recognition in Hollywood, facing rejection after rejection. Now he was finally getting his moment. "Congratulations, Bruce. That's incredible. I want you in it." Silence. Chuck's mind raced. He wasn't an actor. He had never been on a film set. He had never performed for a camera. His world was tournaments, dojos, real combat. "Me, I'm not an actor, Bruce. You don't need to be, you just need to be yourself. A real fighter. A real champion." Bruce's voice was calm but intense. He had a vision, and he needed Chuck to be part of it. Bruce explained his vision, a climactic fight scene in the Roman Colosseum. East versus West. Philosophy versus power. Speed versus strength. Two different approaches to martial arts meeting in the most iconic arena in history. "I need someone the audience will believe can actually beat me." Those words hit Chuck hard. Bruce wasn't looking for a stunt man. He wasn't looking for an actor who could fake it. He was looking for someone real, someone with legitimate credentials, someone whose skill was undeniable, someone the audience would look at and think, "This man could actually win." Chuck was honored but nervous. He had fought in countless tournaments. He had faced the best martial artists in the world. But this was different. This was performing. This was acting. This was stepping into a world he knew nothing about. But Bruce insisted. His voice carried that familiar determination that Chuck had come to know over the years of their friendship. "Trust me, Chuck. This will be bigger than both of us." Bruce explained that he wasn't just making another kung fu movie. He was creating something that would show the world what real martial arts looked like. Something authentic. Something powerful. Something that would change cinema forever. And he needed Chuck. Not as a favor, but because Chuck was the only one who could make it real. Chuck thought about it. He thought about stepping outside his comfort zone. He thought about the risk of looking foolish on camera. He thought about potentially embarrassing himself in front of millions. But then he thought about Bruce, about their friendship, about the respect they had for each other, about the fact that Bruce believed in him enough to ask, and that belief meant everything. "All right, Bruce, I'll do it." "Good. Pack your bags. We're going to Rome." Chuck hung up the phone. He sat there for a moment, staring at the trophies on his wall. Everything he had accomplished had been in the controlled environment of tournaments. Referees, rules, point systems. Now he was about to step into the unknown. To film a fight that would be seen by millions. To face Bruce Lee, not in a tournament, but in a performance that had to look and feel completely real. He had no idea that this decision would change his life, that it would launch him into a film career that would span decades, that it would create one of the most legendary fight scenes in cinema history. All he knew was that his friend had called. And true warriors never let their brothers down. The Colosseum stood silent in the early morning light. No tourists, no noise. Just ancient stone and two warriors. The weight of history hung in the air. This was the arena where gladiators once fought to the death, where emperors watched men battle for glory and survival. And now, two modern warriors were about to honor that legacy. Bruce and Chuck stepped onto the arena floor. The crew set up cameras. The director watched nervously. Chuck looked around, taking it all in. The massive stone walls, the archways that had stood for nearly 2,000 years, the ground beneath his feet where so much blood had been spilled. He felt the magnitude of the moment. "All right," Bruce said, stretching. "Let's walk through it first. Slow speed, just blocking and positioning." They began. Bruce moved like water, unpredictable, flowing impossibly fast even at half speed. His movements were smooth, effortless, as if gravity didn't quite apply to him the same way it did to everyone else. Chuck moved like a mountain, grounded, powerful, precise. Every technique sharp and deliberate. Every stance solid and unshakable. The contrast was stunning. The crew stopped what they were doing just to watch. "Good. Now let's add some intensity." They reset. This time Bruce's movements sharpened. His eyes locked onto Chuck with laser focus. There was something different in his gaze now. Not anger, not aggression, but pure, concentrated intent. Chuck threw a punch, controlled but real. The kind of punch that had won him world championships. Fast, powerful, technically perfect. Bruce slipped it, countered with a lightning-fast back fist that stopped a millimeter from Chuck's jaw. The crew gasped. Some of them stepped back instinctively. They had never seen anything like this. "Again," Bruce said. "Before we continue, drop a comment right now. Have you ever faced someone who was faster than you expected? Type FASTAR below. Let's see how many of you know that feeling." They ran the sequence 5 times, each time faster, sharper, closer. Chuck felt himself being pushed. Each repetition, Bruce increased the speed slightly. Each time, the margin of error got smaller. Chuck's championship instincts kicked in. He started reading Bruce's patterns, anticipating his movements. But just when he thought he had figured something out, Bruce would change, adapt, flow into something completely different. It was unlike any opponent Chuck had ever faced. In tournaments, fighters had patterns, tendencies, habits, but Bruce was water, formless, shapeless. Then Bruce stopped. He stood still, breathing calmly, his eyes studying Chuck. "Chuck, I need you to do something for me."
"What's that?"
"I need you to actually try to hit me." Silence. The crew froze. The director's eyes went wide. Chuck felt his stomach tighten. "Bruce, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm serious. If you hold back, the audience will feel it. I need you to commit fully." Bruce's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. This wasn't a request. It was a challenge. Chuck hesitated. "Bruce, I could hurt you." He wasn't being modest. Chuck knew his own power. He had knocked out opponents in tournaments. He had broken boards, bricks and bones. His kicks could generate enough force to stop a charging opponent in their tracks. Bruce smiled. "You could try." The crew murmured. The director looked worried. He opened his mouth to say something, then thought better of it. This was Bruce's film. Bruce's vision. And Bruce always knew what he was doing. But Chuck saw something in Bruce's eyes. Not arrogance. Not recklessness. Pure confidence. The kind of confidence that comes from years of training, from testing yourself against the best, from knowing exactly what you're capable of. "All right. But if I hurt you, it's on you." Deal. The tension in the Colosseum was electric. Every crew member stopped working. Cameras were repositioned to capture what was about to happen. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" Chuck took his stance. Bruce took his. The distance between them felt both enormous and non-existent. They reset one more time. Bruce took his stance. Chuck took his. The air felt electric. Every person on that set held their breath. The camera operators adjusted their positions, making sure they wouldn't miss a single frame. The director stood frozen, half excited, half terrified about what was about to unfold. This wasn't choreography anymore. This was real. Chuck launched a full-power roundhouse kick aimed at Bruce's ribs. Fast. Sharp. Championship-level technique. The same kick that had won him tournaments. The same kick that had dropped countless opponents. His leg whipped through the air with devastating speed and precision. But Brucey wasn't there. He had already moved, slipped inside Chuck's guard, and landed a counter strike so fast the camera barely caught it. Chuck stumbled back, eyes wide. His mind struggled to process what had just happened. He had thrown one of his best techniques, full speed, full commitment, and Bruce had made it look like it was moving in slow motion. "Did you just—" "Again," Bruce said. No smile this time. Just focus, pure undiluted focus. His eyes were locked on Chuck like a predator tracking prey. Chuck tried again. Jab, cross, spinning back kick. A combination he had used hundreds of times in competition. A combination that opponents rarely saw coming. Bruce weaved, parried, and countered. Every single strike. His movements were minimal, efficient, wasting no energy. Where Chuck moved with power, Bruce moved with precision. Where Chuck committed force, Bruce redirected it. It was like trying to punch smoke. The crew stood frozen, camera still rolling, nobody moved, nobody spoke. They were witnessing something they knew they'd never see again. Drop it in the comments if you think Bruce Lee was on a completely different level. Chuck stopped, breathing hard. Sweat dripped from his forehead. His chest heaved. He had thrown everything at Bruce and hadn't landed a single clean shot. "Bruce, how are you that fast?" Bruce walked over, put a hand on Chuck's shoulder. His breathing was barely elevated. He looked calm, almost serene. "Because I don't think. I feel. And right now, I feel that you're still thinking." Chuck's mind raced. Still thinking. Of course he was thinking. Every martial artist thinks. You read your opponent. You set up combinations. You strategize. That's how you win tournaments. That's how you become a champion. But Bruce was talking about something else. Something beyond strategy. Beyond technique. Beyond conscious thought. That night, Chuck couldn't sleep. He lay in his hotel room in Rome, staring at the ceiling. He replayed the rehearsal in his mind. Every move. Every counter. Every moment where he thought he had an opening. Only to find Bruce already 3 steps ahead. Bruce wasn't just faster. He was reading Chuck's intentions before Chuck even moved. It was as if Bruce could see the fight happening before it actually happened. Like he was operating on a different frequency entirely. Chuck had faced the best fighters in the world. He had competed against masters from every discipline: karate, taekwondo, kung fu, judo. But this was something else. Comment DFFR anti if you've ever met someone who operated on a completely different level than everyone else. The next morning, Chuck approached Bruce. Bruce was sitting outside drinking tea, watching the sun rise over the Roman skyline. He looked peaceful, meditative. "Teach me." Bruce looked up from his tea. "Teach you what?" "How to stop thinking. How to feel." For a moment, Bruce said nothing. He just studied Chuck's face, looking for something. Then he smiled. The first real smile since they'd started. Not a polite smile, not a professional smile. A genuine smile of respect. "Now we're ready to make the real scene." He gestured for Chuck to sit. "What you experienced yesterday, that's the difference between technique and art. Technique is learned. Art is felt. You have incredible technique, Chuck. World class. But you're still fighting the way you were taught. I'm fighting the way I feel in the moment. That's Jeet Kune Do. The way of no way. When there's no preset pattern, your opponent can't predict you." Chuck listened, absorbing every word. This wasn't just about the movie anymore. This was about evolution, about becoming something more than he had been. Bruce stood up. "Tomorrow, we film for real. But tonight we train. Type evolution if you believe growth happens when you're pushed beyond your limits." The day of the official shoot arrived. The Roman Colosseum. Bright sunlight. Crew ready. Cameras rolling. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. The crew had spent days preparing. Lighting rigs positioned perfectly to capture the ancient stone and the modern warriors. Multiple camera angles set up to catch every movement, every strike, every expression. The director had studied the rehearsal footage over and over. He knew what Bruce and Chuck were capable of, but even he didn't know exactly what would happen when they went full intensity. Bruce and Chuck stood across from each other. No stunt doubles. No wires. No tricks. Just 2 warriors and cameras ready to capture history. The morning training session with Bruce had changed something in Chuck. He felt different, looser, more fluid, less locked into patterns and more open to the moment. Bruce had shown him how to let go of the need to control everything, how to respond instead of plan, how to be water, action. Comment ride why if you're pumped to see what happened next. Chuck came out strong, powerful kicks, heavy punches, relentless pressure. Everything he had learned over years of competition poured out. His strikes came in combinations that had won him world championships. Each technique executed with textbook precision. The kind of pressure that had overwhelmed countless opponents. Bruce absorbed it all, dodging, blocking, studying. His eyes tracked every movement. His body moved minimally efficiently. He wasn't wasting energy blocking what he could avoid. He wasn't committing to counters until the perfect moment. He was reading Chuck like a book. Then he started countering. A snap kick to Chuck's thigh that came from nowhere. A finger jab toward his eyes that stopped just short, forcing Chuck to react. A spinning back fist that whistled past his ear close enough that Chuck felt the wind. The crew watched in awe. This wasn't acting. This wasn't choreography. This was a real fight happening in controlled chaos. Cut. That was perfect. Let's do it again for coverage. They ran it 15 times. Each take, they went harder. The first few takes were about finding the rhythm, the timing, the camera angles. But by take 7, something shifted. They stopped performing for the camera. They started performing for each other. Each take became a conversation. Chuck would adjust his approach. Bruce would adapt to the adjustment. Then Chuck would adapt to Bruce's adaptation. It became a dance of evolution happening in real time. At one point on take 12, Chuck landed a real kick to Bruce's side, not full power but real contact, solid, clean, undeniable. Bruce winced but didn't stop. He smiled. Actually smiled in the middle of the take. Good. Now you're committing. The crew murmured. They had never seen anything like this. Most fight scenes took dozens of takes, because actors couldn't get the choreography right. But here, Bruce and Chuck were improving the fight with each take, making it more real, more intense, more dangerous. Type ENTS if you can feel the energy through the screen right now. On take 17, something went wrong. Bruce threw a spinning hook kick, the same kick he had thrown successfully 16 times before. But this time, Chuck's block came a fraction of a second earlier. Chuck blocked it, but the impact sent a shockwave through both their legs. The collision was harder than either expected. Bruce landed awkwardly. His ankle twisted, the drop to one knee, the smile vanished from his face. Cut. The crew rushed in.
Bruce, are you okay?
The director's face went pale. This was his worst nightmare. The star of the film, injured on set. The entire production could be shut down. Bruce waved them off. I'm fine. Just need a minute. But Chuck saw the pain in his eyes. He knew injuries. He had twisted ankles, pulled muscles, broken bones in competition. He knew the difference between minor pain and serious damage. Chuck knelt beside him. We can stop. We have enough footage. The director nodded eagerly. Yes. We can work with what we have. We can edit around. Bruce looked Chuck in the eye. That same look from the first day. Pure determination. No, we finish this. The greatest fights aren't perfect, they're real. The crew fell silent. Bruce's ankle was already swelling. He could barely put weight on it, but his eyes showed no hesitation. 5 minutes later, Bruce stood up, limping slightly, but standing. He tested the ankle. Winst adjusted his stance. Let's go again. Chuck started to protest. Bruce, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. This is the take. I can feel it. Comment war IOR if you believe true champions push through pain. The crew reset. Cameras rolled. And what happened next would become the most legendary fight scene in martial arts cinema history. Take 23. Bruce and Chuck were exhausted, bruised, sweating, breathing hard. The Roman sun beat down on them mercilessly. Hours had passed since they started filming. Most of the crew was tired just from watching. But Bruce and Chuck showed no signs of stopping. Bruce's ankle was wrapped now. He had refused medical attention beyond basic tape and ice. The swelling was visible even through the wrapping. Every step he took carried a slight limp. But his eyes were sharper than ever. Chuck's ribs ached from repeated impacts. His legs felt heavy from throwing hundreds of kicks. His knuckles were raw from blocking Bruce's lightning, fast strikes. But something had changed in him. The nervousness from the first day was gone. The overthinking had evaporated. He wasn't Chuck Norris, the tournament champion, anymore. He was a warrior matching intensity with another warrior. But something had changed. They weren't acting anymore. They were in it. The cameras started rolling, but neither man seemed to notice. The director called, action, but the word felt almost unnecessary. Bruce and Chuck were already locked in. Drop low KDN if you've ever been so focused that the world disappeared. Chuck attacked with everything he had. No hesitation. No holding back. Combinations flowed from him naturally now, not from memory or training, from instinct, from feeling. Bruce had unlocked something in him during their night training session, and Bruce met him with equal ferocity. Despite the injured ankle, Bruce moved like a ghost. His counters came faster than Chuck's eyes could track. His footwork, even compromised, was still impossibly efficient. Every strike had purpose. Every movement had intention. The crew stopped breathing. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were feet on stone, the impact of blocks, and heavy breathing. This wasn't a fight scene anymore. This was art. This was poetry written in violence and respect. Chuck threw a devastating spinning back kick. His signature technique, the kick that had won him 6 consecutive world championships. Full rotation, full power, perfect technique, the kind of kick that ends fights. Bruce caught it mid-air. His hands wrapped around Chuck's ankle like iron clamps. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. Chuck's eyes widened. Bruce twisted. Using Chuck's own momentum against him, Bruce swept Chuck's standing leg, the same principle he had been teaching. Use your opponent's force. Don't fight against it. Chuck hit the ground, hard. The ancient stone of the Colosseum met his back with a solid thud. The impact echoed through the arena. Before Chuck could react, Bruce followed, mounted position. Fist cocked back, eyes blazing with intensity. The ultimate dominant position, the finishing moment. Chuck looked up at Bruce. Bruce looked down at Chuck. For 3 seconds, neither moved. The camera captured it all. The sweat dripping from Bruce's face, the rise and fall of Chuck's chest, the respect in both their eyes. Then Bruce stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his fist. His expression shifted from warrior to friend. He extended his hand, not in victory, in respect. Chuck stared at the hand for a moment. Then he took it. Bruce pulled him up. Both men stood, breathing hard, staring at each other, their chests heaving, their bodies battered, their spirits elevated. Then they smiled, genuine, exhausted, triumphant, not because one had won, but because both had given everything.
Cut! Tassite! He got ITO!
The director's voice cracked with emotion. The crew erupted in applause. Some were wiping tears from their eyes. Others were shaking their heads in disbelief. Camera operators looked at each other, knowing they had just captured something that would be watched for generations. The cinematographer whispered, "We just filmed history. Comment Histowa. If you believe this moment changed martial arts cinema forever." Bruce and Chuck stood there, still holding each other's hands, still locked in that final moment of mutual respect. That was... Chuck started but couldn't find the words. "I know," Bruce said, finally releasing his grip. "I felt it too." They walked off the set together, not as opponents, not as actor and co-star, as brothers. The crew continued to applaud as they passed. Some reached out to touch them, as if proximity to greatness might transfer even a fraction of what they had just witnessed. Later, in the trailer, Bruce wrapped ice around his ankle. Chuck sat across from him, icing his ribs. Neither spoke for a long moment. They didn't need to. Everything had been said in that arena. Finally, Bruce broke the silence. "You know," Bruce said quietly, "that was the best fight I've ever filmed." "You sure? You fought a lot of guys." "I fought a lot of guys, but with you I felt respect. I felt real challenge. That's rare." Chuck nodded. "I felt the same. You pushed me past what I thought I could do." Bruce smiled. "That's what legends do for each other. Type Lugians if you believe greatness recognizes greatness." Outside, the sun was setting over Rome. The Colosseum stood silent once again, but the stones had witnessed something special. 2 warriors honoring the ancient tradition of combat, not for blood, not for glory, but for the pure pursuit of excellence. The movie wrapped. The footage was sent to editing, but what the world didn't know was what happened off camera. The parts that never made it into the film, the moments that shaped 2 legends, the truth behind the greatest fight scene ever filmed. During the Rome shoot, Bruce and Chuck trained together every morning before filming, not for the movie. For themselves, at 5 a.m. while the crew was still sleeping, they would meet in a small gym near the hotel. No cameras, no audience, no pressure, just 2 martial artists sharing knowledge. Bruce taught Chuck his philosophy of no way is way, the core of Jeet Kune Do: absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. He showed Chuck how to strip away unnecessary movement, how to find efficiency in chaos, how to be formless, shapeless like water. Chuck taught Bruce about tournament strategy, endurance, and mental toughness. "You're fast, Bruce. Faster than anyone I've ever seen. But in a real 5-round fight, speed isn't enough. You need the heart to keep going when your body says stop." Bruce listened. He respected Chuck's experience. He had never competed in the tournament circuit the way Chuck had. He had never gone 5 rounds with judges watching every point. Chuck knew what it meant to dig deep when exhausted. They sparred. They meditated. They became brothers. Type BRTRs, if you believe the best friendships are built through shared struggle. Months later, after The Way of the Dragon was released and became a global phenomenon, Bruce sent Chuck a letter. It arrived at Chuck's dojo in Los Angeles. A simple envelope with Bruce's handwriting. Chuck opened it alone in his office. "It ready, Chuck? Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for not holding back. You gave me the fight I needed to show the world what real martial arts looks like. You are not just a champion. You are a warrior with honor. People will remember that fight in the Colosseum for years to come. They'll analyze every move, every strike, every moment. But what they won't see is what happened between us off camera. The respect, the friendship, the growth. That's the real victory. I hope we fight again someday, not on screen but as old men, laughing about the time we shook the Colosseum. Your friend Bruce." Chuck read it 3 times. Then he carefully folded it and put it in a frame on his office wall. He kept that letter for the rest of his life. It stayed with him through his entire film career. Through every movie, every challenge, every moment of doubt. Whenever Chuck questioned whether he belonged in the film industry, he would look at that letter, and he would remember what Bruce saw in him. Less than a year later, Bruce Lee passed away, July 20, 1973. Only 32 years old, the news hit Chuck like a physical blow. He was at his dojo when he heard. A student had seen it on the news and told him. For a moment, Chuck couldn't breathe, couldn't process it. Bruce, the unstoppable force, the man who moved like lightning, the warrior who seemed invincible, was gone. Chuck was devastated. At the funeral, Chuck stood in silence, tears streaming down his face. He thought about that fight, that challenge, that moment when Bruce pushed him to be more than he thought he could be. The training sessions before dawn, the letter that now felt like a final goodbye, the smile on Bruce's face when they completed that final take, and he made a promise. "I will carry your philosophy forward. I will honor what you taught me." Type Farvar if you believe Bruce Lee's legacy will never die. Chuck kept that promise. Throughout his entire film career, Good Guys Wear Black, Lone Wolf McQuade, Walker, Texas Ranger, Chuck carried Bruce's teachings. He insisted on real martial artists in his films. He demanded authenticity in fight choreography. He refused to use wires or excessive editing to fake techniques. "Bruce taught me that the camera knows when you're lying," Chuck would say in interviews. "So I never lie to it." He became one of the greatest ambassadors of Jeet Kune Do, teaching it, living it, honoring it. "Bruce didn't just teach me how to fight," Chuck once said. "He taught me how to think, how to adapt, how to respect my opponent and myself." That fight in the Colosseum wasn't just a movie scene. It became a cultural moment. Before The Way of the Dragon, fight scenes were often staged, theatrical, unrealistic. After Bruce and Chuck's fight, audiences demanded authenticity. Filmmakers had to hire real martial artists. Choreography had to look real, feel real, be real. Jackie Chan studied that fight and learned that comedy could mix with authentic action. Jet Li watched it and understood that wire work couldn't replace real skill. Donnie Yen analyzed it and built a career on combining multiple martial arts styles. Every modern action star owes something to what Bruce and Chuck created in Rome. Today, over 50 years later, that fight is still studied. Film students analyze the camera angles. Martial artists break down the technique frame by frame. Fans debate who won. Type mime. Whine if you believe greatness isn't about defeating others, it's about elevating each other. But the truth, they both won. Because they pushed each other to greatness. Because they respected each other completely. Because they created something that transcended cinema and became legend. So what's the real lesson here? It's not about who's faster, who's stronger, who won the fight. It's about what happens when two people of excellence meet with mutual respect. True warriors don't just fight for victory. They fight for honor, for growth, for something greater than themselves. Chuck Norris challenged Bruce Lee. But what happened next wasn't a rivalry. It was a friendship that changed the world. All right, legends, we've got more incredible stories coming your way soon. Stories of warriors, of respect, of moments that changed history. But I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments. Which part of this story surprised you the most? What's one lesson you're taking away from this? Where are you watching from? Let's see how global this community is. And if you stayed until the end, type Ligan below so I know you're part of the real ones. Your engagement helps us create better content. Your comments tell us what stories matter to you. Your support keeps these legends alive. More epic stories coming soon. Stay humble. Stay strong. Stay legendary. Because true power isn't about being the strongest in the room. It's about lifting others up while you rise.